All right, so we're bringing back the personal statement segment by popular demand.
This is exciting.
Hello and welcome to episode 499 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Ben Olson. With me is Nathan Fox. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. Our first email here is from Goldbug Bobby. The subject is law school debt and the ghost of 2008.
It says, "Hello, Demon Team. As applications are up roughly 25% year over year, I wanted to share this article. The main author of this blog makes Nathan, I guess that's me, look like he's pro legal practice. In my opinion, the general tone of this blog is too negative about the legal profession, but these perspectives are valuable. The global financial crisis was a disaster that destroyed the rose-tinted view of the legal industry. Most current law school applicants were likely too young back then to understand how brutal the 2008 economy really was. Before someone takes on $100,000 in debt, they need to consider how quickly the economy could implode in a recession. Good luck having any student debt discharged. I think this should be required reading for every prospective law student. If you can't stomach this reality, you shouldn't go to law school or, God forbid, pay for law school. Praise the demon, Goldbug Bobby." Yeah, so we're both looking at the the link that Bobby sent in. And the first thing that you notice about this blog is the terrible graphic at the top, which is like weirdly rendered. I don't even have a name for what it's like. Maybe it was
Pixelated.
created in a different
Yeah.
aspect ratio. Yes, pixelated. That's the word that we're looking
Yeah.
for. But it just it right off the bat looks like that looks quite amateurish. Doesn't it? It looks
Yeah.
like, honestly, it looks like what I would imagine the Unabomber manifesto looks like. Just kind of like, like
Sure.
some crank, somebody out there who's just like real mad.
Yep.
They got a lot to say.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that makes this just look like a not very trustworthy authority right off the bat.
Okay, so this this blog has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 articles. The first article had 143 comments. The most recent article 2 days ago only had 5 comments, but then the one before that had 96 comments. So people are finding this blog. The title is Outside the Law School Scam.
And it looks like maybe it used to say inside the law school scam, and then it's got the red stamp outside the law school scam. So I think maybe whoever made this blog used to be inside law schools, and now they're outside law schools.
Interesting.
Looking in. The link that Goldbug Bobby sent in was actually to this post from 2014. And it was a response to Brian Leiter's American Law Schools, The New Economic Realities. So apparently on December 29th of 2013, Professor Brian Leiter published the first part of a 2-part article on Huffington Post entitled American Law Schools, The New Economic Realities. And then it goes on and on and on. And it's a long blog post, and I frankly do not have time to read all of this, but what do I want to say? At the end of the post, it actually says there's a name at the end of the post. It actually says that this is from Charles Cooper, the author, along with Thane Messinger, of a book called Con Law: Avoiding or Beating the Scam of the Century, which is a book apparently that has a subtitle, The Real Student's Guide to Law School and the Legal Profession. Get it? Con law.
Got it.
They don't mean constitutional law.
No.
So this book is actually available on Kindle. You can actually buy it on Amazon. And it's, yeah, I can see how this would be the type of thing that probably should be required reading before people sign their lives away for 6 figures worth of debt. It seems like you should hear the other side, right?
Yeah, although it's very hard to disagree with this. I'm just reading the description of the con law book.
Uh-huh.
And it says, in years past, a reasonably bright and hardworking student could attend law school, perhaps paying for much of it with a part-time job, and graduate into a comfortable, assured world of law practice. No more, law students face an uphill climb from before day one. They first must get into law school, but even then, their success is not only not assured, it is almost a sucker's bet. Okay, then they go on. Um, Hard to disagree with those claims so far. The nature of law school and the price of law school has changed dramatically. It used to be something that was affordable and much more likely to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be professional school for like for like working practitioners of law, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
you already probably worked in some sort of a law office, and now you want to go get a law degree, and you would like go to night school and you would
Mm-hmm.
study law,
Mm-hmm.
and you would pay as you go, and it was more rigorous. The law schools themselves back in the day used to actually fail people out,
Mm.
and the tuitions were reasonable. Working people could pay their tuition as they go and continue working, and it was like it was almost, I don't want to say blue collar, but it was kind of that sort of a thing where it's like, okay, you're going to go get this certification because you're going to be working in this industry, and then somehow it morphed itself into this
Mm-hmm.
lofty, like, finishing school for rich kids. Oh, you want to do another you're graduating from college, and now you want to do another 3 years of school and go do this lofty. It got like separated from real legal practice and became something else, vastly more
Something else,
expensive.
much more
People
theoretical.
people don't fail out, right? Exactly. Yeah, you just kind of sit around in the ivory tower and kick around what the law should be instead of learning how to do legal practice. Meanwhile, it became vastly more expensive and way easier because they just don't want to fail anybody. They
Mm-hmm.
want to just keep admitting more and more and more students and charging more and more and more tuition, and it just kind of skyrocketed out of control,
Yeah.
which
Hmm.
I'm sure happened along the same time as they were able to access student loan money,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
used to
These things
like
are
have
happening
to
in tandem. Yeah.
they used to just have to provide value for the services that were being delivered. And then as soon as it became, oh, the payer is now separate, people can just sign for student loans.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Something went wrong. Um,
So, well, yeah, do you want
yeah,
to talk about 2008 and what happened then when people were graduating from law school during the Great Recession?
yeah. I mean, it did happen in like the early childhood of many of our listeners and current students, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're talking about something that happened 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so it was a giant recession. There, like, we could talk about the causes of the recession, um, or one of the. Actually, I'm not sure if it's right to say it's a cause or an effect of the recession, but we had big like mortgage programs going underwater, right? Remember
Mm-hmm.
when they used
Yeah.
to take home loans and package them up and
Yep.
sell them off to investors, and they're like sort of created this bubble of these weird new securities.
Mm-hmm.
Warren Buffett was warning about it,
Hmm.
and for years ahead of time. And then all of a sudden the bottom just fell out. People realized like, oh, so really the worst mortgages are not actually going to pay back. Yeah, no. So then
Yeah.
that whole like sector of Wall Street crumpled. stock market declined significantly, economy tightened up significantly. I don't know what else caused the global financial crisis.
Well, I don't know. I would just imagine a general history of continually spending more money than we have, which
Yeah.
has to come due at some point, right?
Yeah, which we do have now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we have like deficits are now running higher than they've ever run before. The
Hmm.
United States debt is higher than it's ever been before. Annual federal deficits are higher than they've ever been before. I was just listening to a podcast that was talking about how under Republican leadership and under Democratic leadership recently, they've
Hmm.
done nothing but just raise spending.
Yep.
And they have sometimes cut taxes, but they haven't really like come up with new taxes. They've just come up with new spending.
Yeah. Oof.
And
Just bad in both directions, right?
yeah, and Doge is basically doing nothing, right? Doge is just
Mm.
the podcast that I was listening to said not even a rounding error. It's
Jeez.
performative, you know. It and it might be hurting people, you know. Like I'm not saying people aren't losing their jobs. It's just not actually saving the federal government any kind of significant money relative to the
Yeah.
size of the debt and deficit.
If you look at the federal budget, there are some really big, expensive things, but those things aren't being touched. Yet they're the things
Right.
that could move the needle the most. Yeah. Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare.
Yeah, those are the things that actually matter. And if you're not going to mess with those things, then you're not, you know,
Yeah.
you're not really going to change anything.
Hmm.
That podcast, I mean, that was a great episode, wasn't it? It sounds like you listened
Yeah,
to it.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. No, that was great.
Most recent episode of Freakonomics, and it just talked about myths of what myths about the
U.S. tax
federal
system. Mm-hmm.
the U.S. tax system. That's what it was. Myths about the U.S.
Yeah.
tax system, but it talked about the debt and the deficit a lot. And yeah, it was interesting to note, for example, that we're about to have the interest on the federal debt is now going to be a bigger expenditure than the entire defense budget.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just spending more than you save. And eventually that does come back and bite you, right? What we're doing is we're just getting more and more leveraged as a
Mm-hmm.
country.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, you know, to like get back to sort of the financial markets for just a second,
Mm-hmm.
my buddy told me that he just heard from some other random person on the internet that his portfolio was 80% in a fund that is 2 times leveraged on the NASDAQ,
Hmm.
but it's okay because the other 20% is in crypto.
Okay. Yeah. Wild speculation there. That's so funny. So that person clearly thinks that crypto is a store of value or something like gold.
They think it's like gold, yeah, but I mean the truth is that it's last I saw it's highly correlated with the S&P.
Mm.
So it's not, you know, you think you're getting some hedge. The thing in my mind, the thing about crypto is that like you know, I think it's very foolish to buy gold,
Mm.
but at least if you buy gold as a hedge, you do have gold.
You have
If you buy crypto as a hedge, you have you know, like nothing at all
potentially.
potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I believe in buying shares of companies that are going concerns that are making money. Buy shares of Apple Computer, that makes sense to me because I know where the Apple store is and I know the apple.com and I know that, you know, I know how much money I end up spending with Apple. And so it's like, oh yeah, that's a real business. Crypto, people are buying it just because it's been going up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can go down. As people who bought the Trump coin and the
Oh.
Melania coin, have you looked at the price of those?
That's yeah. I mean, I don't know much about them, but it almost seems like a money grab. Yeah.
Almost
Yeah.
seems like a money grab. I mean, it's just 1,000%. It's obviously a scam. You know,
Yeah.
these are brand new financial assets that there's no there. It's just only it's only worth what people will pay for it.
Mm.
And they had a supply, they just like create this thing out of nothing,
Hmm.
sell it for a shit ton of money. They'll show you, oh, here's the price based on, the early sales of a few shares, but they own 90% of the shares.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they
So
can
they're
manipulate the
manipulating
price
that
however they
price.
want.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
But once it starts trading on the open market, last I saw, the Melania one was down into like pennies on the
Uh,
dollar. And I think that the Trump one was like $1 or $2 after having been at $100. I mean, it's
oh, man.
just obviously a, a, a transfer of money from dumb people to savvy, unscrupulous people.
Unscrupulous people. Yeah. Okay. So to step back, we're
Yeah.
facing we're facing some of the same headwinds that people did in 2007, 2008 that may have contributed or directly caused the great financial crisis.
Economists are
W-
talking about a looming recession in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Um, People on the left and the right, economists on both sides, hate all of everything Trump's doing with tariffs.
Tariffs. Yep.
It's just
It's a lose-lose. Yeah.
it's a lose lose. It makes everything more expensive, and inflation is bad. And because inflation is bad, when you do things that are inflationary, then the Federal Reserve wants to come in and say, hey, we got to raise interest rates. And if you raise interest rates, then that kills the economy,
Yeah.
or it significantly slows it down. And
Or you have
the
the
stock
other
market,
problem. Yeah. Go ahead.
well, I was just going to say that the stock market has, unlimited growth built into it. Like it's never been more expensive. So we're the market is priced in such a way that like we need economic growth to
Mm.
continue the good
Mm-hmm.
times.
Mm-hmm.
And like what happened in 2008, when the economy turns south a bit, the market can turn south a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically, I guess we should bring it back to the effect that has on law school graduates.
Yeah. So in 2007, 2008, you had this big uptick in law school applicants and students who were then coming out into this recession.
Yes.
And so you had two really bad things. Supply was going up and demand was going down because the legal profession follows the market. It's delayed. I think it's delayed anywhere from 3 to 5 years. But if the
Yeah.
if the economy tanks, the legal profession still trudges on for a little bit while they're cleaning up all the mess of the previous whatever
Right.
economic activity.
Right.
But as that activity fades, so does the legal work, right? One, you can't afford it as a company, but two, there's less economic activity, which means there's fewer transactions to take care of and fewer legal type, jobs to fulfill. So anyways, what happened was all these students who were coming out of law school who had been accepted for various roles at big law firms were actually seeing their offers revoked. And the firms, of course, had written those agreements in such a way that they could get out of them. Maybe some of them had to get
Funny
paid
how they do
off.
that.
Yeah. But a lot of people, so people were coming out of school and they were losing the offers that they had been given. People who had been in firms were being let go, which now meant that if you were a student just graduating from law school, you were competing with people who had 2 or 3 years experience, but now looking for a job.
Which, combined with the fact that law school does a terrible job teaching you how to actually practice law,
Mm-hmm.
people really think that they need to work in firms in order to learn how to practice law. I mean, the firms think that. The firms know that they're going to be making a big investment in you
Mm-hmm.
until you're going to be like able to actually positively contribute to the firm.
Yeah.
So if all the first year associates are laid off and now looking for work, and if the second year associates even are laid off and looking for work, the one that I heard that was really striking was from somebody who worked in a law firm and had a stack of applications for the receptionist job.
Wow.
And people were applying for the receptionist job with JDs on their resume.
Damn. So they're like, let me get a foot in the door and hope that I can transition out of this job later, maybe.
Any job's better than no job, right? I mean, and that's a job in a law firm.
Yeah.
So that is a lot better than other alternatives. Let me ask you this. Do you think that that's a JD Advantage job?
I would bet my life that that's how they'd qualify it, because they'd be like, "Well, you're at a law
So,
firm. You know
yeah,
what you know what it's like to be in the law." Yeah.
sure seems like that would be a JD Advantage. Yeah, although I have a feeling that it might be JD Disadvantage in real life, because
In real
if
life,
you
yeah,
were,
you'd look at that person, you say, "Wait a sec, what? We don't want to pay for that overqualification. You're not going to
yeah, we
last.
don't,
You're going to
we,
leave."
right. This will be somebody who won't stick around. We want somebody who wants to be a lifer receptionist with us.
Mhm.
We're not looking
Mhm.
to hire somebody to be our receptionist who is, the day they're hired, still sending out resumes to try to get legal work.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So we are now feeling echoes of 2007, 2008.
Potentially. Yep. We see an uptick in law school applicants, and we see storms on the horizon economically. So I think this just reinforces what we say every week, but that is, if you are going to go to law school, go to the best school you can for the right price, which in a lot of cases means no tuition. It could even mean that the right price for you at a particular school is to get paid to go there. So don't settle for scammerships.
Yeah. And, I feel like we always have to make it clear here that we we don't like this game. I mean, I wish that this wasn't the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if we could blow up the system and start over, law schools who are gonna, if they're gonna take student loan money,
Yeah.
they should be required to charge everybody the same price. Seems seems fairly straightforward to require
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Alternatively, I would probably also entertain a system that was need based, means tested. Like if they wanted to give money, if they wanted to charge less to the people who could afford it the least, that would
Mm-hmm.
seem to be more sensible than the program we actually have, because what we actually have is schools are allowed to discount as much as they want to discount in the form of scholarships. And at many schools, those discounts are more than 100%. They'll actually be giving you money out of the system, money that comes from other students' student loans.
Yeah.
They'll be giving it out to, not only are we charging you zero tuition, but you're actually going to get a check from the school.
Hmm.
And because they do that to high GPA, high LSAT students, these are the people who are the best qualified to compete in law school and compete for legal jobs. And this to me seems like very bad. Just, it seems very bad for the people who are least savvy. They end up overpaying for less value.
Yeah.
But we have to work in the system that we actually have. So our advice for law students, applicants to law school, you should take advantage of the system. You should just make sure that you're not the one holding the bag.
Mm-hmm.
So probably go take a scholarship somewhere, especially given applications are up 25% year over year. We know what happens, don't we, Ben, when law schools get tons of applicants? We heard recently we heard recently about law school committees saying things like, all the applicants are great. They look great. All the applicants are so good.
Mm-hmm.
We got so many applicants and they're so good. Well, what happens is schools then inflate their class sizes.
Yeah.
And it's insidious, because it's just like they need tuition money, or they want tuition money to
Mm-hmm.
grow and to
Yeah.
pay salaries. and to market themselves. They need that cash. And so they can go from, like, at my alma mater, I was in law school in 2008 through 2011. And I
Mm-hmm.
was part of one of the biggest classes that Hastings ever had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they went from, like, having, Hastings is already a big school, but they went from like 350 1Ls to like 500 1Ls
Whoa.
while I was
Yikes.
there.
Yeah,
And
which is diluting your power as a graduate
it's
to get
just
jobs. Yeah.
admitting more competitors, right? It's not like
Yeah.
there's going to be, if they add 20% to the class size, it's not like there's going to be 20% more firms there hiring during OCI. It's not like there's going to
No.
be 20% more jobs in San Francisco or Northern California. So that's what happens when there's this big influx of applicants. So
Yeah.
the people who are going to law school right now, I think you should expect that your class sizes are going to be bigger than previous years
Hmm.
because you have this huge wave of applicants.
Hmm.
And what that means is that the job market, you're starting law school now in 2025. You're going to graduate in 2028. And if the economy turns south and if they start laying off lawyers again, it could be a very nasty job market for lawyers in 2028.
Let's shift to this next article. It seems
Yeah.
to kind of build on what we're saying. This is from Reuters. The title of the article is US law firms chopped summer associate jobs to record low and recruited earlier than ever, reports show. And this is by the one and only Karen Sloan, who reports on all of these things. This was published on March 11th, 2025. Do you want to read it?
Law firm summer associate hiring hit an all-time low in 2024 as firms took a conservative recruiting approach, according to the National Association for Law Placement. The total number of summer associate offers was down slightly compared with the 11-year low of 2023. So 2023 was already at an 11-year low. While the median number of summer associate offers per law firm office fell to 6 in 2024 from 7 in 2023. That's the lowest since NALP began tracking that figure in 1993. Okay, so there you go. I guess early signs potentially that firms are wanting to tighten their belt.
Yeah, I mean,
So
yeah,
firms tightening the belt at the same time that the law schools are unbuttoning their pants so that they could eat more.
yeah, not a good combo to be going.
not a great combo. No.
All right.
Firms, I clicked into the article. Additionally, firms are still adjusting to a hiring surge in 2021, 2022, fueled by a spike in demand for legal services as the COVID-19 pandemic began to wane, and that left them overstaffed. Yep. I'm not saying don't go to law school. I'm saying pay the right price and be clear about what you're going to do when you get out. If you think that it's going to be just like gravy train, I think you need to look into it a little bit more before you dive in.
Do you want to go to law school for free? Make sure to subscribe to the Thinking LSAT podcast over on YouTube. Your subscription ensures that you never miss an episode, and it helps us out in countless ways. It also makes sure that other people get this message and will not fall victim to the scholarship scam that we see around us. This next email is from Reapplying Alice. The subject is, I messed up once, need advice not to mess up twice. I'll go ahead and read it. I love LSAT Demon. I went from a 150 diagnostic to a 173 official score in November of 24. Had my heart set on law school this fall and squeezed into the cycle applying in December. Okay. I've had one offer with money from Vanderbilt, but have been waitlisted at the schools I really wanted, Penn and Chicago. All this to say, I want to take a gap year and reapply with better essays and hopefully a higher LSAT score. I have been scoring 175 plus consistently before my 173. Since I have already applied to schools this year, how will they view a reapplicant? Am I going to be disadvantaged reapplying at schools I get accepted to and don't attend, like Vanderbilt?
They're going to treat it like it's just a brand new application. I I don't know about you, Ben, but I've seen no evidence that schools even notice when you reapply.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it helps you. I don't think it hurts you. I don't think it matters at all. I think every year is a new year, right? It's the same game, but it's like in a slightly different context every year.
Yep.
So this year we have this huge wave of applicants. Whether that will continue into 2025, 2026 or not, we can't really predict.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but especially if Alice can squeeze out another couple points, those points are going to matter a lot, especially at schools that she's talking about here. Talking about Penn and Chicago, you're talking about, top 10 law schools where it it matters whether you're in the I mean, she's probably in the 98th percentile right now
Yeah.
with a 173.
Mm-hmm.
Penn and Chicago want 99th percentile type of lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
So, squeeze out another couple points makes them believe in you more than they currently believe in you.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, they have a well-designed application system. When the reviewer gets to your application, they see a little note that says that you applied in the previous year. But at the end of the day, they're dealing with a whole new class that they have to fill. You have
Yeah.
numbers, you have an LSAT score, you have a GPA. They want to know where to put you to make the best use of you for their class.
Yeah, it seems like it can only help you. Unless you like really put your foot in your mouth with a previous email or something.
Mhm.
There could be something that they really don't like in
Yeah.
your application. They can obviously just deny you again or waitlist you again.
Yeah.
But if you're applying broadly and if you're applying with a couple more LSAT points, I would be shocked if you don't get better offers. Not from every school, but as a basket of offers,
Mm-hmm.
you're you're a very good bet to get better offers on a reapplication. I want to commend Alice for, realizing, hey, there's no rush here.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I just pump the brakes and try again next cycle? That works out so well for the people who actually take that advice and do it.
Yeah.
I've just never heard anybody regret making that decision.
Agreed. Also potentially apply more broadly. I don't know how many schools you did apply to, Alice, but be willing to go down the ladder, so to speak, to get paid to go to law school.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Alice does have an offer with some money from Vanderbilt. So that is, that's not Penn, that's not Chicago. That's going down the ladder a ways. Applying broadly just solves all problems, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The broader you apply, the more chances you have to get attractive offers. And so, yeah, take a year off, Alice. Take 2 years off. It's just not going to make any difference. You're going to graduate from law school in 2029 instead of 2028. Who cares?
Yeah.
Next one is from Alana. Subject is plateauing. Advice on reviewing questions productively and avoiding skimming.
Hello, I'm aiming for 165 plus on the June LSAT. My first diagnostic was a 151, and I've been practice testing around 159. But despite studying consistently since September, I have only improved 1 point from 158. I recently switched to LSAT Demon. I would greatly appreciate your advice on my wrong answer journal. I feel like I'm not learning enough from it. My takeaways seem too specific to each individual question. Beyond LSAT Demon's explanations, what should I focus on during review? Yeah, there's some disjointed things here, right? Like, we generally wouldn't want people to do a wrong answer journal because they actually do the opposite of what Alana seems to be saying here, which is they tend to be too general. Being too specific is not usually the problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much we can trust that. I mean, well, she could be saying things like, I didn't realize that the conclusion was this sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she might be saying that that's too specific to the question.
Mm-hmm.
But my response to that might be, yeah, the takeaway though is that you didn't correctly identify the conclusion of the question
Mm-hmm.
or the conclusion of the argument. So yeah, you're always going to be making errors in context, but you could still realize what's going on with that error and then avoid making that same error in different contexts. And I guess one thing I'm really trying to get around to here is that, Alana, most of your mistakes are coming from just misreading shit.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not reading well enough. You have to slow down and understand more of what you're reading. I hate it when people say beyond LSAT demons explanations, what should I focus on?
Mm.
Because I want you to really focus on understanding that one question. I want you to really understand why is the right answer right. I want you to really understand why the wrong answer is wrong. And if you can feel that click of, okay, here's what they're saying about the argument. I see what I didn't understand about the argument. That might be enough to clear up your issue entirely.
Mm-hmm.
I see what they're saying about the question that's being asked. And I understand now why this one, I thought it was a toss up. I picked B. The answer actually turns out to be D. But then when I'm looking into the explanation, I see reasons, like just concrete reasons why B's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is D right, but in their explanation, they talk about how you might have predicted that answer if you had been doing the question properly from the beginning.
Yeah.
So instead of like looking for something else to focus on besides the demon's explanations, I would focus more on the demon explanations. And then if you're not really feeling that click, then I would encourage you to use the ask button.
Yeah, I agree with that. If there is one other thing to focus on, it's not beyond the review section, though. It's the actual question on the page, which gets back to your first advice. You're probably not reading carefully enough. So when you're reviewing, if you don't understand something or got it wrong, really dig into the content of the question itself. Do you understand the argument? Do you understand the question that's being asked? Do you understand the answers? Is the explanation helping you understand those things? If not, then hit the ask button.
People score 165 plus with no prior LSAT knowledge. Okay. I've seen people do it. Just right out of the box, first practice test, 166.
Mm-hmm.
That happens sometimes. And it's not like super geniuses either. It's just normally smart people who are careful readers, who take their time, who insist on understanding what they're reading. The questions are solvable on the page with no prior LSAT knowledge. So if you're, struggling in the 150s, trying to get to 165, I can just guarantee you that your problem is you're not reading the argument well enough. You're not reading the question about the argument well enough. You're not reading the wrong answer that you're picking well enough. And or you're not reading the correct answer that you're not picking well enough. There's just lots going on there that it's really not about tips and tricks. It's not about weird arcane knowledge, right? You don't need like foundational knowledge about the LSAT. You just need to dig in deeper. You need to practice the habit of solving the questions.
Hey, last thing for Alana before we go on. Alana, you got a 151 diagnostic. That's high. Most people score their first test, their first cold diagnostic test in the 140s. So you're saying you're aiming for a 165 plus. Don't sell yourself short. It would not be unreasonable at all to break into the 170s. Not saying it's necessarily going to happen, but it won't happen if you get a 165 and then pat yourself on the back and say, okay, I'm good to go. Or that's the best I could have done. Not necessarily.
We've seen people improve from the 140s into the 170s.
Yes, for sure.
We've seen people improve from the 130s into the 170s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so starting out in the 150s, yeah, that is awesome. Don't, I know I was yelling earlier about people scoring 165 right out of the box, so I don't want Alana to feel bad about that.
Mm-hmm.
151 is a fine place to start. And yeah, we see 20-point improvements all the time. So 170 something is in reach. But the way you get there is one question at a time and carefully solving it. So you need to have higher standards for what it feels like to read something. I hope I'm getting that across, It's just I'm not shy about stopping after the first sentence and going, "Wait, what?" Because I insist on understanding what I'm reading. That's like the number one superpower of the LSAT is that you just win that battle of will to force yourself to understand what you're reading.
Hey, I just had this idea while you were talking. If you struggle with admitting that you don't understand something in a meeting or within a friend group or in any sort
Yeah.
of conversation that you're having in your life, it's possible you're not doing the same when you're reading. Like it's a good habit to practice. Say, well, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by that word. I don't know what you mean by that phrase. I don't know what you mean when you say this.
Yeah.
And the person can tell you.
Yeah.
And who cares if they laugh at you and say, "Oh, you don't know about that?" Just say, "Yeah, I
Never
don't."
seen that show. Yeah.
And just practice that habit of saying, "I don't know," because saying you don't know
Yeah.
is the first step to knowing.
I love that idea. And I do keep coming back to that over and over that it requires a bit of like ego
Mm-hmm.
to admit you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You're like confident enough in your ability to understand things
Mm-hmm.
to admit when you don't understand something
Yep.
because you expect to understand it. You're a shitty lawyer if you don't understand the assignment or if you don't understand the document.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just go, "Oh yeah, I think that this means this. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine." Like
Yeah.
that's not what we're doing. We're like going into the realm of facts and evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And these LSAT questions, LSAT logical reasoning questions, it's a little miniature puzzle. They're
Mm-hmm.
trying to make an argument. They're normally not doing a very good job making the argument. So you should be confused, right? Like if you get to the end of it and you're like, "Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Good job." You don't get it. You should be like 90% of the time, you should be finding something wrong with the argument that they're making.
Mm-hmm.
So it does require you to stop and go. In fact, I bet like half my explanations, there's going to be somewhere during reading the argument where I'm like,
Huh? Yeah.
"What? What? I don't see. That doesn't really add up. Your evidence is over here and your conclusion is way over here. What? If I understand you correctly,
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to suggest that this evidence proves this conclusion?
Yeah.
Okay." And it is very lawyerly, right? It's like, okay, well, I can see why you want what you want. I'm just not sure that the evidence that you have is going to justify the outcome that you are hoping for here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about what you would need in the middle, the gap there.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my advice for Alana is that she needs to go deeper
Deeper. Yeah.
into each individual mistake.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And ask questions. Shout out, by the way, to the Ask team. The Ask Button team was doing heroic work over the weekend. And Ben, I'm sure you saw this on Slack.
Yeah.
But we've got a gigantic team of awesome people there who are just waiting for LSAT Demon students to ask them questions. So every single question that you would practice in the Demon, whether you're drilling, doing time sections, full tests, classes that you see, or questions that you see on class syllabi, any LSAT question that you see in the Demon is accompanied by an Ask button. And if you just hit Ask, there were a team of 20 people over the weekend who got the queue down from 160 something questions in the queue. They got the queue all the way down to inbox 0 over the weekend. So shout out to Billy and the whole amazing team there on the Ask button. But we promise our students that we'll get back to you within 24 hours. That already is a heroic achievement. but we frequently get that Q down to 0.
Yeah.
And so we are sometimes responding just like that
Yeah.
to people.
If you send us in an ask question, you have no idea what the Q is at. But if you send it to us and the Q just got to 0,
you're very likely to get a response like while you're still in the same study session.
Yeah.
So every time we talk about it, it results in an influx of new questions. So
everybody's like, shut up, stop talking about it.
Yeah. Well, probably a good time to shout out that we do hire from our listeners and from our students.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're scoring 170 or higher on your practice tests, maybe hit us up about a role on the Ask Hero team.
Yeah. Cool. All right. This next email is from Slow But Steady. The subject is 20 points, but losing motivation.
How would that make you lose motivation?
Yeah.
I've been with the demon for 6 months and have gone from a 130 to a 150, 20 points, which is amazing! ! I want to thank you guys, but I find myself lacking motivation, only able to finish 2 questions per section when I practice.
What?
Wait, surely that's talking about reading comprehension, right?
2 passages? I hope.
2 passages per section.
How else
2 passages
could you get a
per
150?
section makes sense if you're scoring 150.
Yeah.
2 questions per section is not a 150. That's a 130.
Okay.
Anyway, how do you recommend keeping up motivation? I know I can do it. I have, after all, gone up by 20 points! Thank you so much. What do you want to say to Slow But Steady?
Yeah, I'm curious what your goal is. I mean, do you know why you want to go to law school? Do you know what about it that excites you? Is there something beyond the test that you are working toward? I think it helps to remind yourself of the progress you've made. I know that looking at progress is a key motivator for a lot of people, but apparently you're seeing that progress and still not getting motivated. So maybe you don't have a burning desire to go to law school.
Could be. And, if you walked away from it at this point, I feel like it's already a win because you're like, yeah, I worked on the LSAT. I was able to improve significantly. At 150, you're right around the average LSAT score of people who take the official LSAT.
Mm-hmm.
My concern, though, and maybe Slow But Steady is losing motivation because of what we repeatedly say on the podcast about not paying for law school. My concern with someone like this is that we might have given them just enough rope to hang themselves. That they get, with a 130, you're not getting in anywhere.
Sure, we've helped them up to a 150. Now they can get into school and they are going to have to pay for it.
That's what I'm worried about, is that if you stop here and you take, you get in, you squeak in to some mediocre law school, and there are a lot of mediocre law schools. Yeah. Far more mediocre law schools than there are actually good law schools, right? Not to paint with too broad of a brush, but there's 200 ABA schools.
Yeah.
150 of those schools are okay. Okay to bad, right? And if you end up paying for one of those schools, I just don't think paying for law school at a 150 is a bad bet. Is that painting with too broad of a brush to say? I mean, I already think paying for law school is a bad bet. But if you're paying for law school with a 150, that's a really bad bet.
No, I don't think that's a broad brush. I think that's true.
Okay. Good. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I
can imagine there's one exception, right? There could be somebody who has a job already lined up. They just need to get the freaking JD. But boy, that is rare.
You're exceptionally bad at tests for some weird reason. You've got this mental block, and the second you start taking standardized tests, you just shit the bed. And that's really what's holding you back. And yeah, absolutely. You might go to law school and crush it. But if 100 people made that same decision, I would be anticipating that one of those people is going to be the one that crushes it. And 99 of them are going to have made a very poor financial decision.
Yeah.
So I do think that you need to keep going. Slow but steady. I think you need to get to that 160 or higher that's going to get you in at the right price.
Yeah, use the estimator. Go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships. Look at what scores you need with your GPA to go to schools, not only for free, but get paid to go. Is that motivating? To imagine a school giving you money to be there?
Yeah. And I would issue this challenge to pretty much anybody. Go to the estimator and then look at what 10 points more would give you. So put in your current 150 and your GPA and look at the offers that you probably would have gotten in last year's cycle. Add 10 points to that score and see how those offers change.
Yeah.
Because pretty much everybody is going to go from no offer at all to full ride at least one school on the estimator with a 10-point improvement. So that, each point of improvement could be worth $10,000 or $15,000 worth of scholarship money. So there's maybe the motivation, right? You've already come a long way, but if you could get that next 10 points, that's the 10 points that's going to really get you somewhere at the right price. Next one is from James, who crushed the exam. And on his way out the door, James is offering this tip from a departing demon.
Okay. James writes, enjoy the process. The LSAT is a very interesting exam which rewards skills that are useful in many contexts, not just law. If you're stressed, try to relax and take it slow.
The skills are basically careful reading and the application of common sense logic.
Yep.
Like your ability to put two and two together, or your ability to spot bullshit, your ability to understand what people are saying, understand what evidence they actually have, and then spot it when they're just trying to get you to believe something that's not maybe quite the same thing as the evidence that they actually have. It will be infuriating because you'll no longer be able to listen to politicians or commercials or, you read the news. Like, you're just going to see all kinds of bad arguments everywhere you look.
Yeah.
That's kind of the cost of all this, is that it might make you just insufferable with your friends and family. But I agree with James that it does rewire you to think more critically, read more carefully, and that it's going to pay off a lot in law school and beyond.
Very much so. All right. So we're bringing back the personal statement segment by popular demand.
This is exciting.
Nathan, you, and I can understand this, hated reading these personal statements on the show because we kept giving people advice on how to improve them. And people would write in and say, hey, I've done everything you've told me. I have the perfect personal statement here. And within the first 3 words, we were face palming and saying, what the hell is this? This is not anywhere close to anything that we want. And we're about to repeat everything we've said before about writing and writing better. So we're going to try to,
after like a 2-year hiatus from doing this, I feel that my mental health is in a more stable place where it is a risk. It is a risk to my mental health that we're doing this.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to give it a shot. And we're going to do it slightly differently this time, though.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You have to, if you submit your personal statement, you have to keep our attention. Just like an admissions officer, right? They start reading it. They're not interested. They're going to stop and they're going to just move on because they have so many of these that they have to get through. But we're going to do the same thing here. If we don't like what we're reading, we'll stop, and that's your score. So the longer you can keep us engaged, the higher your score, and we'll keep track of the average lines that we get through.
And I don't know where the current record, is there actually a current record?
No, I don't know what this is. It says that the current record is 2.5 lines. That is an example.
Yeah, we're going to refresh that. The current record right now is 0 lines.
0 lines. Yep.
And we're going to change that as we go. So yeah,
Okay.
you want to read it or you want me to read it?
No, you can read it. This first personal statement comes from Jeremiah, who is a 2-year
So
LSAT demon user. Yeah.
it's like the Gong Show.
The Gong Show. I don't know what that is.
Really, you're old. How do you not know what the Gong Show is? The Gong
Well,
Show
hold
was.
on. You're saying I'm old? Let's talk about that.
I'm even older than you, so I can say whatever I want. but um, the Gong Show was a show in like I guess it was like from the 70s and 80s. I think I saw it mostly like in reruns, syndication. Remember back when there were
Okay.
3 channels? Do you remember when there were 3 channels?
I don't remember there being 3 channels, but I do remember just flipping through them, and half of them were bad. One of them was in Spanish. Sometimes I would land on a movie that I wanted to watch, but it was almost done. It was like 30 minutes left. Yeah.
The Gong Show was a show where it was like a variety show, I think. So I think you could do like singing, you could do like comedy, you could do like juggling, you could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
And then there was a literal actual gong, like a giant gong. It's the thing that you smack with a big mallet.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It makes a big bong.
Makes a gong sound. Yeah.
A gong sound. And there were like, I think it was like celebrity hosts or like celebrity judges, because I remember them fighting. Like one of them would be like, I've had enough. Because that was the whole gimmick of the show, was like, how long can they go?
Yeah, yeah.
This is the Gong Show of personal statements, is what we're going to do here. Because
100%,
either one of us at any moment can hit the gong. But I remember like one of the hosts would start like comedically going over like, okay, I've had enough of this bullshit. I'm going to go over and get the giant mallet to go. And then I remember like the other hosts like tackling them to not let them actually hit the gong.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But we're not going to do that. We're going to just.
No, we're going to be like,
out.
you want to hit it? Go for it.
Okay. So I have opened up. Jeremiah, thank you for sharing this with us. It's quite brave. First thing I want to comment though on here, and I mean it might be enough to hit the gong.
Oh dear. Interesting.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, right at the top, it says, I am a paralegal at a family law firm. And I actually think that's great. I want to hear more about Jeremiah.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'm very confused because that's the entire paragraph. And then there's just a fucking wall of text.
Yeah.
Literally no paragraph breaks.
Yep.
From there all the way to the end of the statement.
On to the next page. So it's a paragraph that's longer than one page. It's the entire statement. So Jeremiah is doing the extreme in both cases. The ultra one sentence, not even a full line paragraph. And then everything else is now just going to be in one paragraph, one big wall.
It's just an odd choice. I mean, I don't like. Did Jeremiah? Do you think Jeremiah ever printed this out? Because we want to give one tip right now, which is strongly recommend that you print your shit out and read it out loud.
Yep.
Because you will notice different things when you print it. I don't know what it is, but something about having it on paper, it just hits different that way. And reading it out loud can also, you'll just notice awkward things that you wouldn't have noticed if you don't read it out loud.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That seems so strange. It's like, I love a mix of short sentences and long sentences. I love a mix of short paragraphs and long paragraphs.
Yeah.
But Jeremiah going, okay, I'm going to do one extremely short paragraph and then one ridiculously long paragraph.
It's jarring. Yeah.
It is jarring. Okay. Anyway, I'm a paralegal at a family law firm. I took the lead in an independent adoption case with termination of parental rights. Our clients were not related to the child. The birth mother consented to the adoption of the child by our clients. The mother spoke only Spanish, So I was the one communicating with her to get information for the case. I drafted and filed the initial adoption court forms. I wanted to terminate the birth father's rights on the grounds of abandonment since he left the child for a year without contact or support. Ben's making funny faces. I'm just like waiting for Ben to hit the gong.
Yeah, I'm like, there's so many things going through my mind. First of all, these sentences are mostly written in a very detached, abstract form, right? When you talk about the child, the birth mother, it's very distancing, right? So it's a little, you have to really force yourself to visualize what's happening. I was really thrown off by, I wanted to terminate the birth father's rights. What you want, in my mind, doesn't fucking matter. It's what your client wants. And when you inject yourself like that, all of a sudden it becomes like you look biased, so that was raising an eyebrow. I almost was maybe in a little bit of like, how do we do the gong? I don't know. I was mildly curious, so I didn't hit it, but yeah.
I find, okay, so here, I have a couple problems. One
Okay.
is it's way too much about other people. Like, you're supposed to care about your client, or you're at least supposed to care about your client's case. But I, as a reader, I'm here to learn about you.
Yeah.
So why the fuck am I hearing about the birth mother and an adoption and a father who was a deadbeat and like what?
Yeah.
Why are these people? They're not applying to law school.
I mean, there are some I sentences here. You took the lead in an independent adoption case. You also said you drafted and filed the initial adoption court forms. That just raised an eyebrow to me too. Do you have the legal standing to do that? I guess so.
I would prefer a higher level summary of what you do as a paralegal.
Yeah.
Like, talk about your caseload. Talk about how, like, here's how many clients you manage. Here's, you can say, for example, but I just find it really jarring when we just drop straight into all this specifics about one particular case.
No, I think there's power in the example, but the example would be better if it were given in context.
And all you need is maybe a sentence or two to like tee it up.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? But you're not teed up here at all. You're just, it's like coming out of nowhere. Like, whoa, okay, I get it. You're a paralegal at a family law firm, but then just smash cut right to this adoption case with termination of parental rights and like, people who I don't care about. I don't know these people. I mean, God, I don't even have name. I have no idea where they are. I don't know who they are. I don't care because I'm supposed to be trying to learn about Jeremiah. So I would rather you talk more about life at the firm. And if there's something that you want to, if you want to get into one example, that's great. But it's looking like this entire example, it just keeps going all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Where did we stop?
I think we stopped. Wait, did you read he was last seen by the mother's family in Mexico?
No.
Okay, so we ended at the previous line. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. Well, we didn't finish.
Is that how we're doing it? Lines? We can't do the sentences because
everybody has different, lengths, right?
Okay, so we're going to say 6 lines.
Well, technically 5 because we didn't get through the 6th line.
Thank you, Jeremiah. You are the current record holder. 5 lines of your personal statement until we tapped out.
Yep.
If you would like to compete, send in your personal statement at thinkinglsat.com. If you want to leg up on the competition, maybe go check out our new admissions course, which is available for all Demon Live subscribers. There's advice in there on all things admission, including personal statements. That's something that we kind of just dropped in for free to our Demon Live subscribers.
All right, moving on. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, hey, Ben.
Oh.
What's the deal with Seton Hall? This came up over the week that somebody was talking about Seton Hall's 3+3 program.
Oh, okay. So we decided
And I think that, we have dunked on these a lot in the past on the show, but they feel more and more shady to me. Any type of program that your school offers that allows the law school to get their hooks in you and keeps you out of the broader applicant pool, to me seems shady right off the bat. So we wanted to dig in a little bit to Seton Hall law, and we'll specifically talk about their 3+3 program.
Okay.
But let's start by looking at the 509 report.
Yeah, well, we can step back even further. I'm just going to go to lsatdemon.com/scholarships. I'm going to type in at the bottom of the page, Seton, and it's going to come up. It's going to filter out everything else. I can see right away that Seton Hall is ranked 61, according to U.S. News World and Report ranking. What else do we know about them? They're in Newark,
well,
New
taking
Jersey.
one click into it, looking at the tuition roll call for Seton Hall, 669 students in the school with a median LSAT of 160, GPA 3.7. It's just a very mid school. There's a lot of schools like this, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They are, interestingly, on their 509, despite the fact that they have a $67,300 tuition and another $1,800 in mandatory fees on top of that. Despite that outrageous tuition, they are showing 0 students with full tuition, 0 students with stipend.
Yeah.
But they are reporting 53% of the class getting more than half. And more than half can be a lot.
It could be as much as full.
Okay, so I'm going to dig a little deeper. I'm going to look in the actual 509 report.
Okay.
Because on the 509 report, there is a grants and scholarships table. And would you look at that? 75th percentile grant amount. By the way, they give 86% of their students a grant. Okay.
Okay.
The 75th percentile grant amount is $63,800. And again, that's against a $67,300 tuition, plus a couple grand more in fees.
Yeah, so you're looking at $69,000 basically for tuition and fees, and they're giving 25% of their class something more.
Of their grant recipients.
Oh, of their grant recipients, yes.
Yeah, so it's 25% of 86%. So it's more like 20% of the class is virtually on a full ride.
Almost there. Yeah, $5,000 short of a full ride.
This year on the 509s, we have this new language by the grants and scholarships table that says the term full tuition scholarships refers to scholarships that cover tuition and mandatory fees. The term more than full tuition refers to scholarships that cover more than tuition and mandatory fees. So the only way that you could correctly comply with that reporting requirement is that the full tuition should almost always be 0 unless they are getting exactly full tuition plus exactly mandatory fees. So if you get $1 more than that, you should be listed as more than full tuition. And if you get $1 less than that, you should be listed as half to full tuition.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Am I understanding
Yeah,
correctly?
you're understanding exactly right. Yep.
So what that does is it enables a school like Seton Hall, and I would imagine that they're doing this because, Ben, 25% of their grant recipients are getting more than 63,800. That's their 75th percentile. So there's 25% of the grant recipients getting more than that.
Yes.
And 69,000 would put them into the full tuition bucket.
Yep. So we know they're getting less Then 69,000, because if they were to get that amount, then they would have to be reported as full or more than full.
But my guess is that they're actually making offers to people that say this is a full tuition
yes,
scholarship.
100%. Yep. And they're just not covering the fees.
And they're allowed to do that based on this reporting definition on the American Bar Association 509 report. They're fully allowed to tell students, okay, we're giving you a full tuition scholarship because we are. But then on the 509 report, unless it covers also every dollar of the mandatory fees, they're going to report you as half to full tuition.
Yep.
And there's a huge chunk here. 51% of the class is getting something between half and full. But their median grant is $42,000. So of the 86% who are getting a grant, the median amount is $42,000. These are big discounts.
Yeah.
And they're especially giving a lot of discounts that are damn near full tuition scholarships.
Yeah. It would be really strange to give somebody a scholarship that is so close to full tuition, but not be full tuition. Like it just doesn't have the punch that a full tuition scholarship offer has, right? If you're
it would be a bad recruiting. It would be really bad for recruiting. Yeah. The people in the admissions office who are like, look, we need to prop up our LSAT and GPA. You know, like we're really worried. Our median LSAT is only 160. We, you know, like that's not a prestige number. That's not the type of thing that's going to impress big law employers. It's not the type of thing that's going to impress U.S. News. We need high LSAT, high GPA applicants. And we've learned, because we're a very mid law school in an area of the country that has a lot of people, or sorry, a lot of law schools is what I meant to say. There's a lot of competition. This is Newark, New Jersey that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's got to be a dozen better law schools within an hour drive. So they know, I mean, they're scrapping to try to get qualified applicants to their school. And that's why they give these grants. So yeah, when they're making those offers, I mean, you can write in and tell us, find us at thinkinglsat.com or on the socials if you want to talk about this issue. But we would love to hear from applicants to Seton Hall. Did they make you an offer that said full tuition scholarship? And
I would just be so shocked if they didn't, right? It'd be so weird.
It would be stupid of them if they didn't. If they didn't, it would be like malpractice. Like they would be doing a bad job. Like they're bad at their jobs if they're not saying we're giving you a full tuition scholarship, because that's what kids, you know, they should want.
And to be clear, what we're saying is that Seton Hall would be offering $67,300. They would say, that's the scholarship we're going to give you. That's a full tuition scholarship. But because there are $1,800 in mandatory fees, when they turn around and report to the ABA, they're saying, no, we didn't give a full tuition scholarship because there were still some fees that were due. So
and they're allowed to point to the 509 and say like, we don't give, no.
we don't give full tuition scholarships, but we do.
But we do. Yeah. They didn't make this system. I mean, unless they did, you know, they could be like part of the people who are on the committee
advocating
these decisions.
Yeah.
But we don't know that they are part of the regulatory capture. We just know that the regulators have been apparently captured. Either that, or this is just a bad policy. You know, American Bar Association, I think you might want to rethink that definition. That's just such a specific definition. Well, and instead, why don't you just make them report deciles? Deciles of actual price paid would be the solution.
Well, that would be nice. I would also say abolish fees. Fees are the fiction here that allows them.
It's the same difference. Yeah,
I see what the ABA was doing when they imposed this definition, because they were saying, hey, look at these schools that are actually charging money, but they're pretending. It somewhat does make sense, because fees are a fiction. So they're saying, hey, if you want to report or claim full tuition scholarship, which no one really wants to do, but technically to do so, you really should be covering both. It does make sense. Yeah.
All tuition is the biggest fee.
It It is.
right?
Yep.
Or the fees are part of the tuition, or the tuition is just another fee. Whichever
Yeah.
way you look at it,
Yeah.
it's just this. It is a fiction to be talking. Oh no, that's fees. No, they are mandatory, but that's different. What? Why? Why is it different?
It's not
It's all
different.
just
And
the sum of money that you're going to have to pay.
yeah.
Okay. Interestingly, Seton Hall is a school that offers conditional scholarships. That's a practice that
Mm,
has been fallen pretty far out of favor. It seems like more and more schools are not doing these rug pull types of scholarships,
yeah.
but Seton Hall still is. They last year gave 125 conditional scholarships. So that's, they tell you when you're getting it, this is not a guaranteed grant.
Mm-hmm.
And it is definitely not guaranteed because 30 of those were reduced or eliminated last year. So that's something slightly higher than 20% of those 1L scholarship recipients ended up not getting that same amount of money. They could have got nothing at all, or they could have just gotten a haircut on their grant
Mm-hmm.
in the second year because of academic performance. I don't think that that's as big of a problem as people tend to think it is. I mean, I know I just called it a rug pull, but
Yeah.
hey, they told you in advance that that was a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice is pretty clear that you just drop out of law school if that happens. You're not doing well. If you get
Yeah.
your scholarship reduced or eliminated, you're not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're there and it's not going well, I don't think it's going to end well. And I think you should probably just say, hey, if you're going to change the price on me, I can't keep doing
Bye.
this.
Yeah.
Like, you're charging me more now because it's not going well for me. Why would I continue to throw good money after bad?
Hey, so I was curious what percentage of their scholarships are conditional, and they're offering almost 700 scholarships, right? So that means to the whole entire class, which means they are maybe offering 200 to 250 for the entering class, and
I
then
think that seems
120.
about right. Yeah.
So then 125 of those, so it's a little bit more than half. So that means maybe, 100 scholarships last year that were granted were not conditional, but then another 125 were. So more people are getting conditional scholarships at this school than regular.
Yes.
Likely.
Well, yeah. I mean, another way of looking at it is they had 249 in their first year class,
Mm-hmm.
and 125 entered with a conditional scholarship.
Yep. Well, but you need to know what percent, 86% of that first year class likely got a grant.
Yeah.
If-
Well, I'm
if
just
they-
saying,
Yeah.
it looks like half the class got a conditional scholarship.
Oh, gotcha. Sure.
So there could be additional people who got a non-conditional scholarship,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like better than 50-50 if you're at Seton Hall, or it's right around 50-50. I'm not sure if they're giving these grants to, well, I suppose we can look, to see if they give the grants to part-time. And yeah, they don't give grants at nearly the same rate
Mm-hmm.
in the part-time program.
Not too far off.
Oh, wait, sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah, so they do also give grants. Yeah, so okay, so let's say then that it's 288
Mm-hmm.
total. Oh, there it is. Yeah, 288 total in the first year class, and 125 of those were conditional scholarships. So this is a very common thing at Seton Hall.
Yeah. But what I think
Slightly
is
less than half
important,
the class.
what I think is important to realize here is that if you're being offered a conditional scholarship, you might come here and say, "Oh, okay, well, I see they gave 125 last year. I see that 30 of
That's
those
just
got."
what they do here.
Yeah, not necessarily, because there were probably another 100
Yeah.
scholarships given on top of those 125 that were not conditional. So you shouldn't just roll over and not ask for a non-conditional scholarship or an unconditional
Oh,
scholarship.
absolutely. You could definitely try to negotiate that out.
Mhm.
Although, if it comes down to negotiating away the conditionality or negotiating more money,
Mm.
I would always just negotiate more money
Yeah, because
and then
either
have a plan of dropping out if it's not going well.
way you don't pay. Yeah, but at least
mean,
you
'cause,
pay
like,
less. Yeah.
If you are in the bottom 20% of those conditional scholarship recipients, there were already potentially 40% of the class who was there on a scholarship that wasn't conditional.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're doing poorly among the people who got a conditional scholarship. That's what that means if they're taking it away from you.
Yeah.
That's like the poor getting poorer. I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to continue. Like, they're telling you it's not going well.
Yeah. Hey, so this leads right into our discussion actually of section stacking. I think we need to define that for people. What is section stacking? And then does this happen at Seton Hall? I mean, we don't have the answer to that question, but
all we have is rumors. So this is unsubstantiated really, but producer Josh reports extensive anecdotal descriptions of section stacking. One blog asking how to know if your law school section stacks. It has a top comment with the response, "Do you go to Seton Hall?" So the thing is, it seems like it would be hard for them to stack their sections because they're giving 86% of the school grants. I guess they could, though, put all the conditional scholarship recipients in one section.
Yeah.
The people who have unconditional scholarships.
It could be worse than that, right? How many sections are in a school? So first, let's step back for half a second. Section stacking is where you take the class that just was admitted to your law school, you break them up into sections, and then you put people together who, as you're saying, Nathan, have maybe a conditional scholarship so that you know for sure some of them, based on the curve, are not going to keep their scholarship.
Yeah. If it's a B- curve, which it is in many schools, or a B curve or whatever, let's say it's a B- curve where the class has to be, the average grade has to be a B-.
Mm-hmm.
And if they require you to keep a 3.0, so that's just one tick higher.
Mm-hmm.
Well, more than half the class can't get a 3.0.
Yep.
So you can rig the game against those conditional scholarship recipients. It doesn't look like they're doing it to that extreme because they're only reducing or eliminating 20% of the scholarships. I mean, that's the thing that I would really push back on here.
Yeah.
If people are accusing Seton Hall specifically of section stacking or whatever, it's like, well, okay, but how bad could it be if they're only taking away 20% of your scholarships?
You'd expect it to be closer to
keeping the scholarship.
Yeah. Closer to 50%.
It just doesn't look like they're really trying to game it, because if they wanted to game it, they could game it a lot worse than that.
Although it still could be, and it could be interesting, right? Because I guess it depends on what their standards are for eliminating or reducing those scholarships. If the standards are not at the median but below the median, you wouldn't expect 24% or 25% to be eliminated unless they were all together. And then you do have a little bit of a game going on there.
Yeah. And, I don't think that that's like terribly nefarious.
Yeah. You were given a conditional scholarship anyways. We weren't sure how well you'd do.
Yeah. I mean, like I could imagine them defending themselves just on purely logical grounds. Like, yep. Like, these are lower LSAT, lower GPA applicants. We're worried about our bar passage rate. We're worried about our employment statistics. We gave them these grants, generously gave them these discounts because we think they've got potential, but
here's where I think
make them compete with each other to try to keep the scholarships.
Yeah, here's where it gets nefarious, and that is that you don't explain that the groups or that you're competing with the class as a whole. You think it's just random, but in reality, you're playing a different game than the one that's being presented, right? Because the way it's presented to these people is, hey, you got a conditional scholarship. Here's what you got to do. You got to maintain this GPA or whatever. And they're thinking,
and they're not gonna
okay.
They're not going to trumpet it either, right? That's just something that's kind of in the fine print.
Yeah.
You're going to have to acknowledge it when you sign your offer, but they're not going to like go out of their way to explain to you what it means.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to draw your attention to it more than they legally have to.
No, but the question is, do they even mention at all that there's any thought going into how the sections are put together?
Yeah. You could always ask, you're allowed to. You got your offer right there. Before you sign it, you could go, hey, I've heard of this practice of Stacking sections. Are you putting all the conditional scholarship recipients into like a Hunger Games type situation?
Or at least more than the expected average if you assign them randomly. Yeah.
Yeah. Counterpoint to all that.
Hmm.
Don't you have a better chance of keeping your scholarship if you're competing against people who got conditional offers and not competing against people who got guaranteed offers? Presumably, the people who got guaranteed offers are there because of their higher LSAT, higher GPAs.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess, man, and you have to assume that everybody's going to be busting their ass anyway to try to get jobs. So it's not like there's going to be a section of Hunger Games and a section of just everybody's like on the gravy train.
Yeah.
Right. Like even if you did stack the section that has all of the guaranteed scholarships, they're still going to be killing themselves to try to get good grades.
Yeah.
I think though that does mean that like you really would kind of prefer to be in the group that is all conditional scholarships.
I guess it depends on how they do conditional scholarships. Maybe they do conditional scholarships for larger amounts. I mean, there's all sorts of variables.
Yeah.
Presumably, it's a less competitive offer for a less competitive applicant, but
that's what I would think. They're putting the conditionality on it because they're just not so sure about you. They're not willing to guarantee that price for 3 years because they have concerns.
Yeah.
I'd rather compete with people that they have concerns about, not the people they don't have concerns about. But anyway.
Well, but what you'd also like is you'd like the people who didn't get scholarships at all. Are they brought into that group? Probably not, if they are stacking.
Yeah, if you put those people in with the guaranteed scholarships, now that then gets kind of shady. The people who are the real suckers in the game, the people who are just paying full price to begin with.
Yeah.
You put those in with the guaranteed scholarship recipients who have the highest LSAT, highest GPA. You let them fight it out for grades. The people paying the most are now just like really a favorite to do poorly in the grade competition. And meanwhile, you've got the Hunger Games going in the other section of all the the conditional scholarships.
Maybe they keep the non-tuition scholarship. So you didn't get a scholarship at all. Maybe they keep them separate because they're actually highly prized on some level, right? They're paying.
They don't want them to get bad. Well, but the thing is that they never flunk anybody out, right? So
yeah.
And I have a feeling that nobody drops out either. Or very, very little attrition. I think that's actually on the 509. We can see how many people actually leave. So JD1 total academic attrition 4%. 0% JD2, 0% JD3, or 4 if you're going part-time. So yeah, I mean they have very little. Once people start, they almost always finish. That could be because they're like treating those people especially good, the ones that are like paying full price. Hey, you guys are among the lucky 14% of people who are paying full tuition from day one. Interesting.
Yeah.
I would love to know more. If people want to follow up with us at thinkinglsat.com about section stacking at Seton Hall or anywhere else, I would love to hear more about it. I don't think it's as shady as people make it out to be, but I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. Because I certainly understand how it looks shady, even if it's not actually shady, it looks shady. So the combination of conditional scholarships and section stacking then starts to look like, oh wow, okay, you guys are definitely gaming it here.
All right, yeah, let's move into the employment report.
Yeah, that's what people are doing if they're going to this school, right? They're thinking it's going to be a good financial decision for them and their family. Presumably they think this is going to help me get a job.
Yeah. Okay. So
does it help people get jobs?
Let's find out. So I'm looking at the 2024 data, which actually gives us the employment outcomes for the 2023 graduates. In 2023, 241 people graduated from Seton Hall. 194 of them got a bar passage required job. Another 21 got JD Advantage, and another 13 got professional position. So yeah, those folks didn't need to go to law school. Bummer.
There's 6 that are unemployed and seeking. There's 1 that's unemployed, not seeking. There's a couple with deferred start dates or graduate studies or law school funded jobs. There's another 2 with employment status unknown. I think that the top number and the bottom number are the ones that really matter. 241 total graduates, 194 of those are employed as lawyers.
Yeah, so that means 50 or about 20% of the class did not achieve employment-wise what the institution was intended or created for.
Eerily close to that 20% of people who get conditional scholarships eliminated, reduced or eliminated, right? I mean, we've got to assume, or also eerily close to the 14% who get no grant at all at this school.
Yeah, you add those 2 numbers together, you get close to the number of people who also just didn't get a JD required job.
It's not going to be 1-to-1, but it's going to be heavily weighted. The people who didn't get scholarships or the people who got conditional scholarships that were eliminated are going to be overrepresented in that 50 people there who are not working as actual lawyers.
Yeah. Okay. So then,
and that's why the system is just so wildly unfair overall. It's people pay more money for worse outcomes. And that's the thing that we're really concerned about.
Absolutely. For those
So what kind of lawyers of the people who are lawyers, what kind of lawyers are we actually talking about here?
Okay. So a lot of people go into smaller firms. You got 12 in 1 to 10 attorney size firms. You got 8, 5, 6, 9. Okay. So then we're looking at firms that we have in the past looked at firms that are 250 or higher. In other words, they have 250 lawyers or more. That's considered big law. But I guess, what were you saying? According to NALP, or is that big law is actually 100 attorneys or more, maybe?
Different people make the cutoff at different spots. So we've been using 250 on the show. The ABA has a separate category for firms of 500 or more. We do know that salaries for first year, second year associates tend to be higher at bigger firms. The bigger the firm, the more money they tend to pay.
Yeah.
For new lawyers. So I don't know. I don't think it really matters that much where we draw that line. You could draw it at 100. You could draw it at 250. It doesn't make a huge difference at a school like Seton Hall because this is just not a school that has impressive big law placement.
Okay. So 20% of the class is just doing nothing, and 20% of the class at the top is getting the big law salary or has the potential to.
Yeah. One interesting thing that I'm noting here, and boy, that is just a gigantic. Do you see that? 97 in state, local, and territorial clerkships.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's like well over a third of the class. Is there they're ending up in a state, local, or territorial clerkship, which, as I understand it, those can be decent jobs, but they're not big money, big prestige. They're not the automatic breeze into big law if you want to. Federal clerkships are different because if you clerked on a federal court, the big law firms are like, wow, that's rare experience. That's the type of people that we need for the type of law that we practice. Those state, local, territorial clerkships are much more like working class lawyer jobs. That, I'm not saying you can't build a successful legal career from there. It's just not, all clerkships are not the same. And that's not the type of clerkship that is going to just, allow you to make the switch over and start making big money if you want it. Vast majority of graduates end up in New Jersey and New York. That's no surprise at all. There's also a smattering in Pennsylvania. It's like an okay regional school.
Typical, very typical. 20% making the big bucks that everybody thinks about, 20% doing nothing, and then a bunch of people in the middle. By the way, apparently Seton Hall plasters their website with this. Ranked #1 for clerkships by Princeton Review. Okay, well, ranked number 1 for clerkships because of what we were just talking about, these state and local clerkships. So that's a poor ranking.
Yeah, that's lame. Like, come on, Princeton Review, do better, because nobody goes to law school with this dream of being a clerk at the county court.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not the type of job that have you ever heard anyone say, I want to get a job I want to be a clerk at the county court. I want to be a clerk at the, even like the state court. That's just not a goal that people have. I think it's a reality that when they get out of law school and they need a job as a lawyer, it's like, oh shit, well, I thought that I would be making more money than this, but I guess I'll take the lifestyle of a government job.
Yep. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there, but it's not the norm. And so pretending that and clerkships sound rarefied, right? So if you just focus on clerkships in general, it's going to sound a lot more impressive than it is.
Well, the fact that the jokers at Princeton Review are just pumping out these cheesy rankings. And then Seton Hall, of course, is like, oh, whatever we're ranked number 1 on, that's what we're going to be super proud of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The reality, I don't think that the reality of that is at all what you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the 3+3?
Let's do it. Okay, so it says here, students will be automatically admitted to a 3+3 program if they meet the indicated criteria above, have strong recommendations and essays, and have not engaged in any inappropriate conduct. Okay. Students admitted to any of the 3+3 law programs must maintain a 3.6 cumulative GPA at Seton Hall and achieve a minimum 161 LSAT score to continue in the program and enter the law school.
Huh.
That's interesting.
So,
yeah,
that is really interesting because we were just looking at a school that didn't even allow you to participate in their binding program for undergrads.
Yeah.
I can't remember if that was a 3+3 or if it was some other binding program for undergrads, but they were like, if you register for the LSAT, you can't even apply to this program.
We will automatically reject you. Yeah.
But here, Seton Hall is now requiring you to take the LSAT and get at least a 161, which is, shocker,
above
1 point above their median.
So they're making you a valuable candidate for them, but probably not offering you any money. Let's see what they have to say. Wow, that's a real... Seton Hall,
is it binding?
Well, let's see what... I got to read this. Seton Hall is one of the most renowned law schools in the nation, ranked number 1 in the nation for judicial clerkships.
No, it's not.
And number 11 in the nation.
It's just not. I mean, okay, if by most renowned you mean there's 200 law schools in the country and we're ranked above the median, I guess by that metric, you're one of the most renowned law schools in the nation. But if you take any law school applicant and you say, hey, start naming law schools, it's going to be a long ass time before they get to Seton Hall.
Hey, look at this next sentence. Graduates have a 98% employment rate and find employment in government, private sector, and at prestigious law firms across the country. That's not true.
Which part of that's not true?
98% employment rate? How many are unemployed? Oh, well, 6.
You've got 6 who are clearly unemployed and seeking.
Mm-hmm.
You've got another one who's unemployed and not seeking.
My gosh. Yeah, so they're focusing on that very technical definition of unemployed. They're saying you have to be unemployed. Well, to be unemployed, you have to be looking for a job and not getting it. If you got anything, if you went to school, if you did anything else, then you're not unemployed for our purposes. That turns out to be 235 divided by 241, which is 97.51%.
Round that up to 98%. Slap it on your marketing website. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect. Apparently, there are 3 different 3+3 programs available. So there's a business and law one, which allows you to earn a bachelor's degree in business and transition to Seton Hall Law for 3 years to complete your bachelor's and earn your JD.
Mm-hmm.
The admissions requirements there: high school GPA of 3.5 or higher, submit SAT and ACT optionally but strongly encouraged. And you do have to get into the 3+3 at the point of admission to Seton Hall. So that's not going to require the LSAT.
Mm-mm. That's really early
Okay.
on. That's really committing to law school before you even know.
Well, it's a 3+3, right? Which already, I think 3+3s are kind of inherently just a bad idea, because what undergrad even knows what major they're going to end up graduating with, let alone is that sure as a freshman applicant that they're going to go get a JD?
Yeah.
They shouldn't be. I mean, it's the last thing in the world that I would want for someone who I care about. I've got a niece who's about to go off to college, amazingly, and she's going to start somewhere this fall. But if she was like, oh, I'm going to do a 3+3, I would be pulling my hair out trying to talk her against that, talk her out of it. Like, okay, do your undergrad first. And then if you decide you want to go get a JD later, you can go get that for free, instead of signing up for one of these programs in advance where you have to presume that these people are just going to be paying 6 years of tuition.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal of this thing, right? It's just like, hey, let's see how long we can keep these people.
The schools are going to present it to the students as a benefit. Oh, are you kidding? Oh, this is a great opportunity. They called it an amazing, up at the top, they said it's an amazing 3+3 joint degree programs. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to be trying to get you to pay and pay and pay and pay. And okay, you only pay for 6 years instead of paying for 7 years. Okay, there's another program that is diplomacy and international relations and the law.
Okay.
So here, it's open to all students who meet the entrance requirement for the School of Diplomacy and International Relations. And then all you have to do is maintain a 3.6 at Seton Hall. Again, SAT, ACT. And again, you have to be selected for the program at the point of admission to Seton Hall. They do later. It says at the bottom, it says for all 3 of these programs. So there's also one in the College of Arts and Sciences. It doesn't seem substantially different, although they do list minimum SAT score for that one. But you do have to get a 3.6 cumulative GPA at Seton Hall and achieve a minimum 161 to continue in the program and enter the law school. Which their median GPA is 3.7. So you could get in with slightly less than the median GPA if you get slightly over their median LSAT, which you have to have a 161 in order to qualify for these 3+3 programs. I guess they don't seem to be binding at all.
Well, yeah, because if you didn't get the 161 or you just never took the LSAT,
yeah, then you can't continue to the law school. So now you don't have a degree from Seton Hall in 3 years, which you thought you were going to have. Well, you thought you were going to have a bachelor's and a JD after 6 years.
So then what do you do?
Instead,
I guess you just continue with the program and pay for another school of undergrad, or another year of undergrad, or 2 years.
You just do a 4-year bachelor's or 5 years or 6 years bachelor's instead of doing a 6-year bachelor's plus JD. Anything more you want to say about the 3+3?
Yeah, just don't do it.
Seems like just don't do it. Yeah. 3+3s are just always a scam. I mean, how do they benefit? How does Seton Hall benefit from this?
Oh, 100%. They get to keep you paying tuition longer. And when you go to law school, you're almost certainly going to be paying more because you're coming in as a committed applicant. You're like, hey, I'm in the 3+3 program. Why would you even be looking at other schools? You've already decided to go to law school, and specifically you've decided to go to law school at Seton Hall. So they know they don't need to offer you that much money to come there. So they get the best of both worlds. They get you committed, paying full price, and you think you're getting a deal because you're saving a year off of undergrad. But just so you know, law school tuition is way higher, generally speaking, and it's 2 more years on top of what you would have had to pay. And at least for Seton Hall, they're requiring you to get an LSAT above their median. So you're helping them in the rankings and paying full price.
Yeah.
Probably.
My guess is that Seton Hall undergrad is also pretty spendy.
Yeah.
But, you know, Seton Hall law is, as we've discussed, $69,000 a year. And
Oh my
so you're going to,
gosh.
like, you're signing up in advance for 3 years of that. And because they've got their hooks in you, they have no incentive to give you a discount. Why
Yep.
would they give you a discount?
Yep.
You know, they're like, oh shit, this person decided to go to Seton Law when they were a fucking freshman in college.
Unless you
They're
raise
not,
the
they're
issue,
not looking elsewhere.
they don't even want to talk about it, because why plant the idea in your head? Oh, we've decided
Yeah.
to give you a scholarship. Oh, I can get scholarship.
And you can't even leave because you don't have your bachelor's yet. So you're going to take the LSAT
Oh, that's another.
with this plan of finishing
wow.
your bachelor's at Seton Hall Law.
Oh, I didn't think
So-
about that. That's why they can require you to take the LSAT, because you still can't become a contender at any other law school.
They can kick you out of the program, at which case you can't just go to a competitor law school. You have to still first finish your bachelor's.
Oh my gosh. So at first I was like, maybe this isn't as bad as the one we just read about, because you have to take the LSAT, which then would put you into the potential, you know, pool of applicants who could go to other schools, but you still can't go to another school. So that's why it totally works for them. You're still totally locked in.
Quite bad for applicants. I mean, you know, if there's parents out there, or if there's applicants out there who are thinking about doing something like this, it's not just the Seton Hall 3+3. It's just 3+3s are bad for students.
Early decision for law school, I'm sure for undergrad, bad. 3+3, bad.
It's so
Full price,
one-sided.
bad.
Like, this should be, it's just clear that this is a one-sided deal. I mean,
yeah, the person who came up with it was the law school / the undergrad institution. Think about that for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, one party to a deal is always the one who proposes the deal. But so that doesn't by itself make it inherently a scam. But I just could imagine some court somewhere looking at this deal and finding it unconscionable. Just saying like, nah, you
Sure,
can't
but-
offer that. Dude. That's not.
Nathan, anytime someone comes to you with a contract that they've written, like, you got to
Oh, of
be
course.
extra.
You have to
right?
expect that it benefits them. Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
But people take these things like it's a win for them. They're like, oh, did you hear? We could do 3+3. That's going to save me on my 4th year of undergrad.
It's an amazing opportunity, Ben.
Yeah. Jeez Louise.
Okay. They do offer a part-time weekend only program. That's good. I am a big fan of part-time programs.
Yeah. Keep working.
Yeah. Keep your job. That's fantastic. Here we have, this is interesting. Okay. So we have a recruitment email that was actually sent to one of our LSAT Demon team members.
Okay.
The subject line is the Seton Hall Law Experience,
Okay.
which is a bad subject line because it's so vague. I mean, it doesn't say anything.
Well, is that good or bad? I don't know.
All right, you want to read the email?
Yeah, sure. It says, "Dear student, imagine how it would feel to," and then I have a colon, and then I have a bunch of presumably bullet points. 1,
Okay.
prevail before the Second Circuit and secure disability benefits for an indigent client. Good, I guess. Number 2, argue federal appeals for incarcerated individuals suffering from cruel and unusual punishment. 3, obtain humanitarian release from ICE custody for a young, gay, Salvadoran man who was detained after suffering a homophobic attack and later suffered sexual assault while in ICE custody. Okay, I don't know. I mean, this is heavy stuff.
Hold slumlords accountable on behalf of low-income apartment residents. Win a protection order and asylum for an indigenous woman from Latin America fleeing familial and societal violence. Obtain parole release for a person who served 30 years of a life sentence using brain science on emerging adults that was unavailable at the time. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different, public interest feeling things that they want you to imagine how it would feel
How do you
to
feel?
do those things. I feel very skeptical that someone is going to get paid to do this work. I think that all those things are admirable, and I don't doubt that they happened to Seton Hall students or graduates. But like, who is employing the people to do these things? Oh, actually, this is all clinical experience.
Yeah. So the email continues. At Seton Hall, you can experience that feeling. Our students logged over 24,000 hours in clinics and pro bono services in 2023 and 2024. These outstanding opportunities are available regardless of what area of law you are considering, not just the public interest space. All our clinic students develop critical legal and professional skills as they work together with faculty to take on real cases. Okay,
Okay.
then they have a link here that says learn more about the clinical opportunities at Seton Hall Law. This is the problem with getting people distracted away from the fundamental metrics, which is okay, how highly ranked is this school? Not that ranking matters that much, but are we talking about a school that's in the bottom 200 or are we talking about a school that's in the top 10? And what's the cost? Everything else is just noise and a way to get you distracted away from price.
Yeah. And like actual jobs. I mean, this is all just shit that happens in clinics at every law school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not even a differentiating factor. It's just like, hey, imagine all this. You could do those things at any law school, but we specifically want you to come here and do them. I feel like I know what the deal is with Seton Hall Law.
It's the same deal as everywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't. This is a fungible law school.
Yep.
I mean, the difficulty for them is that it's fungible and it's in Newark, New Jersey,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know that much about Newark, but I know enough to know that I don't think it's really a very desirable place to live. So, it's just like, okay, it's an okay law school in a mediocre city. If they offered you a screaming deal, if you were there paying no tuition,
Mm-hmm.
which apparently you're going to pay something, but you might be paying just this tiny sliver of fees, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they might be offering you full tuition plus almost all the fees. And that would have been the best offer that they gave last year. If that was your best offer after applying broadly, and if you do want to practice in New Jersey, New York, and you didn't get a better offer at any other school in the area, then I could see it. Which is the same thing. That's the same thing that I think about all law schools that aren't, top of the top. What's your take?
No, I agree 100%.
Okay, let's do word of the week and let's get out of here.
Sure. So this is from you, right?
Well, the sentence is not from me. The sentence is from a Forbes article.
Do you read Forbes? Do we know where we got this?
I don't know. Word of the week is obfuscate. And the context is, in that construct, the strong performance of the few can obfuscate the mediocrity of the many. What does it mean to obfuscate something? This is a word that I know and love.
Yeah, and you're going to see it a lot. I think you'll see it on the LSAT a few times. You'll definitely see it in law school.
You've seen it several times already on the show today when we were talking about the kinds of things that law schools say about themselves. They are very frequently obfuscating their unemployment rates, or they're obfuscating the fact that so many people are going into the term JD advantage is inherently obfuscating.
Yeah, it's misleading, right? You're like, you see the letters JD, you're like, oh, okay. But
It basically means to hide, right?
To hide.
Disguise.
That's what I was going to say, but I was also curious if it's related to the word obscure. I don't know if it is, but it's certainly similar, or it has that vibe.
Yes,
right?
definitely sound alike at least. Yeah.
And similar meaning. When you obscure things, when you hide them.
Obfuscate. To throw into shadow, to darken. To make obscure. Second definition is to confuse. So you can obfuscate an issue. You can obfuscate a reader. Yeah, it's just like, smoke.
It hides things.
Cool.
Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on our socials at LSATdemon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, email help@lsatdemon.com. You can also check out our other podcast. That's LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 499 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Wow, one more until we get to 500. Shit.
I know.
Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing ya. Don't pick the loss.